We saw this object come over our heads. It was this oval object, pinky orange, which landed down over a hill vertically. We ran up to see what it was. Our first thought was it was an aircraft on fire. We live quite near Manchester Airport.
It was big?
Oh, it was very big. It was 60 foot across. 60 foot across. When we saw this object hovering 2 foot off the ground.
Today, our story takes us to Manchester, England, in the summer of 1979. 36-year-old Lynda Jones was walking along a riverbank with her 2 children when an otherworldly encounter unfolded around them. It is a case that is outright chilling and disturbing, as it is fascinating. It also matches the theories and findings of many researchers into the alien abduction phenomenon. Lynda Jones and her husband Trevor had spent the morning and early afternoon chatting with an old friend in the back garden at their home in the Didsby part of Manchester. Their 2 children, 5-year-old Christopher and 15-year-old Lisa, were also enjoying the sun and lazy days of the summer holidays. After Trevor left for his shift at a local factory, Lynda, the children and her friend set out for the fields near the River Mersey. The journey would provide a shortcut for her friend and allow Lynda and her children to examine the wildflowers, which was one of their hobbies. At around 7:30 p.m. near Simon's Bridge, the 2 adults parted ways. As Trevor would not be home from work until 10:30, she took out her pocket dictionary of wildflowers from her handbag and leisurely strolled along the riverbank. By 9 p.m, with the evening still light but beginning to darken slightly, Lynda could sense something was not right. Suddenly, her daughter shouted, "Mum, the moon's coming towards us." Lynda turned her attention, first to her daughter and then to the strange object coming towards them out of the early evening sky. It was heading in their direction, seemingly from the golf course, which lay on the other side of a large crop of trees. Lynda stated, "It was like the shape of a rugby ball, but only a lot bigger, and was bright and orange in colour." She watched the bizarre scene unfold for a moment longer before exclaiming to her children, "Get down." Assuming it was an aeroplane on fire, she flung herself to the ground. She was expecting an explosion. Perhaps she reasoned the object was from the airport nearby. However, when no sound of the sort came forth, she looked up again. The craft had seemingly just passed over them before it started to disappear out of sight behind an embankment. She suddenly noticed how the atmosphere had changed from a few moments ago. Now, there was not a sound other than a thick silence. Even the traffic from the normally busy, albeit distant road appeared muted.
Oh, goodness me, my life flashed in front of me when I saw this thing. My daughter was absolutely terrified. We then ran up the hill to see what was going on. And we saw this object, which was shaped like a crescent moon. Oh my God. It was physical. It was a physical object. I felt like I could have gone up and touched it. I felt myself sort of drawn to it. Well, really, I just wanted to have a closer look. Probably curiosity.
Snapping back to reality, she turned and ran from the object, grabbing her children's hands as she did.
And we ran as fast as we could.
Then she could see her housing estate. Still carrying Christopher, and with Lisa only slightly behind her, the pair ran as fast as they could to their home, slamming the door behind them. She then relayed what had just happened to her husband. Each of them would draw pictures of the object while it was still fresh in their memory. It was only now that Lynda realised she couldn't account for around 90 minutes of time. The incident, which began just after 9 p.m, was no longer than 10 minutes in length, including the time it took to run home. However, after being back inside 10 minutes, she realised it was now 10:50 p.m. A little over a year passed before Lynda began to talk about her encounter. However, in the winter of 1980, desperate to discover what happened in those 90 minutes, she would undergo hypnotic regression. She would recall how she and her children began to run away from the object when several people were running towards it, and these men had long dark coats. Each was also carrying a satchel-type bag. The men ran past her and headed towards the object, eventually disappearing into a thick mist. Her next memory is waking up in a strange room. Around her are several strange beings entering the room around her. As these strange figures entered, dressed in suits with long necks. The next thing she knew, she was on a table. Something was placed on her legs, which made them go really cold. She tried to look around to see what was happening. She sensed it was some kind of examination. Neither regression or her own memory would allow Lynda to recall the specifics of the examination. However, one thing she had noticed before undergoing hypnotic regression was that her menstrual cycle was randomly out of sync following the incident. She had put it on the back of her mind. However, when strange marks would appear on her body from out of nowhere, which would also vanish just as quickly, sometimes within hours, she began to think there was a connection to the strange evening along the River Mersey. So much so that she would eventually visit her GP. When her doctor mentioned she had a miscarriage, she was shocked. She hadn't been pregnant since giving birth to her son. After undergoing more tests, the doctor would confirm that the scarring on her fallopian tubes was a result of an ectopic pregnancy. Lynda again was shocked with disbelief at the findings. She was determined that she hadn't suffered a miscarriage, much less an ectopic pregnancy, which is extremely painful and can be fatal if not treated. As well as this, she recalled months and years after the event, tall men in black suits following her around everywhere she went. On several occasions they even appeared in her garden. So, what should we make of the claims of Lynda Jones? She would appear to be a solid witness, and many things she mentioned have striking similarities with other cases, like the Kelly Cahill encounter.
I'm definitely not prone to imaginary things, and it was definitely not an optical illusion. I mean, I find it's pretty hard for one person maybe to have an optical illusion, but for three people at the same moment in time to have an optical illusion, I mean, the odds are pretty small on that, aren't they?
Anyway, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the story, and I'll see you in my next one.